Hello everyone, today we're going to be talking about the Alaska Purchase, otherwise known as that time Russia sold Alaska to the US. But before we talk about Alaska itself, we need to talk about what both America and Russia were doing in the mid-19th century. So we'll start off with Russia. Throughout the 19th century, Russia had advanced its position as a great power of Europe and had also expanded deep into Central Asia. However, there's one problem with being a great power, and that's because you make enemies. And in Russia's case, its ambitions had put it at odds with quite possibly the most powerful country in the world, the British Empire. Britain feared that Russia's increasing presence in Asia could lead to an invasion of India, which was a big deal because India was seen as the shining jewel of the British Empire. This competition between Britain and Russia is known as the Great Game. The best way to describe it is the 19th century Cold War, but without the nukes and the communists. As a result of this rivalry, Britain, along with France, had chosen to aid the Ottomans during the Crimean War, which ultimately led to Russia's defeat. This defeat left the Russian Tsar, Alexander II, feeling concerned about what would happen if another war with Britain broke out. The main area of concern was Alaska, which had been an overseas possession of Russia since the 18th century. The problem was that Alaska bordered Canada, which was a British colony. The Tsar feared that the poorly defended, sparsely populated Alaska would be quickly overrun by the British army should another war break out. And as a result, Alexander and his advisors began to consider another option. What if, rather than defending Alaska, they sold it instead? The only question now was, who to sell it to? Now we're going to talk about America. If I could say just one thing about America in the 19th century, it would be that it just could not get enough land. To put this into perspective, in 1830 the US looked like this. By 1860, it looked like this. It wasn't all sunshine and rainbows for America though. After all, in the 1860s, the country descended into a little-known conflict called the American Civil War. Following the Civil War, America went through the process of Reconstruction, and so once again, it turned its attention to new lands. With all this in mind, it's not surprising that Russia saw America as the most likely candidate for the purchase of Alaska. Although, fun fact, they did actually offer Alaska to Liechtenstein. Bet you didn't see that one coming. In March 1867, Russian and American negotiators met to discuss the terms for the sale of Alaska. The negotiations took an entire night, and in the end, both sides settled on the sum of $7.2 million. And thus, on the 18th of October, Alaska was formally handed over to America. In the end, both sides were pretty happy with this deal. Russia was happy because it meant it no longer had to defend Alaska, and also hoped that its friendship with America would allow it to eventually weaken Britain. As for America, both the negotiator William Seward and the president, Andrew Johnson, saw the purchase as a welcome distraction from domestic policy, and it also gave them a nice new strip of land to work with. This was further compounded when it turned out that Alaska was worth much more than the Russians had originally realised. So I'm willing to bet Tsar Alexander's still kicking himself for not charging more. Thanks for watching everyone. If you enjoyed, please consider subscribing or maybe even